This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And the maze we're trying to avoid is a disease that so many people have. It's called diabetes. And I know growing up, I always thought diabetes was for old people. And I don't know if that means my family is getting old because there's diabetes in our family. And, you know, each of the men that I'm going to be talking to today, my husband Richard by my side, and my brother Gary, um, they both have been diagnosed with diabetes type 2. And yet they take different types of medication, they eat different diets, because there's like not one right thing to do for this. So I'm going to start with you, Gary. Um, when were you originally diagnosed? How long has it been?
I was originally diagnosed with diabetes about the year 2000. And the way I happened to be diagnosed, um, I had low income at the time, and they had a bus that came out from the med school at USC in California, and it provided free checkups. So I went to have my physical done, and the doctor discovered that I had high blood sugar, and they were connected to a clinic. And at no cost, I was sent to the clinic to inform me about diabetes, provide me the medication. At the time, it was insulin, and to show me how to use and inject myself, which I found pretty scary because I had never done self injections. So I went to this clinic, and what I'm going to share today might scare off some people that are listening, but I knew nothing about diabetes except it was connected to blood sugar. And so I went to the clinic, and the first thing they did was present a presentation telling me all about uh, what diabetes is and how we have medication today that combat it, and it's insulin. And she showed me syringes, and she showed me vials of insulin, and she told me that I would be injecting myself, which I was pretty nervous about. And she tried to soothe my fears. And then she said, well, let's practice injections. And we were injecting oranges with syringes filled with water. And we did that about a half a dozen times. And the interview with the nurse was ending. And she said to me, would you like to do your first injection here in my presence? And I was thinking, gee, that's great. Yeah, I'd rather do it with my teacher standing here. So in this building, there was a pharmacy, and the doctor had given me a script for the insulin that I needed. And she said, go down to the pharmacy, get the insulin, come back here, and then we'll have you do your injection. So I did that. And I came back about 15 minutes later with the insulin, and she takes it from me, and she fills the syringe and hands me the syringe and says, now, here, you inject this someplace around your navel. And I thought that was going to be really painful. And she says, actually, no. The area around the navel is less sensitive than other parts of your body. So I give myself the injection. There was nothing to it. It was real easy. And that was the end of our session. And normally I would have left, gotten in my car, and driven home. The clinic was about half an hour from my house. On that day, however, this clinic also offered dental services, and I had made back to back appointments so that I would go to the dentist when I was finished with the insulin. I walked down the hall. They checked me into the dental clinic. I'm sitting in the chair. And, you sit there 5 minutes before the dentist actually walks in. All of a sudden, my body went limp. My arms just sagged to my sides. I had no uh, energy at all. And I started sweating profusely. I'm not exaggerating if I tell you that I sweated out 5 pounds in 5 minutes. I
Wow.
was I was wringing wet. The nurse, the dental assistant, comes in and sees me limp in the chair, and she says, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I sort of muttered, uh, uh, "I just took some insulin." And she knew that I came from the clinic because I had told them. And everybody started running around. It was like a madhouse. And uh, a doctor came in, and the nurse from the clinic, uh, and they said, "Well, how much did you take?" And I said, "I'm not sure. Ask the nurse." There was a mix up. The
A mix up.
doctor, the doctor who wrote the script, like many doctors, scribbled something. And the nurse who filled the syringe for me read that scribble, and she thought it said 60 units, whereas what it really said was 6 units. So I had overdosed 10 times what I was supposed to have. Insulin's very powerful. And if you have too much insulin, your blood sugar drops. When your blood sugar drops below a certain point, you go into insulin shock. And then your vitals can just click off like
Oh
flipping
my.
a light switch. If I, in fact, would have gotten in my car to drive home, I would have been on the 5 freeway in Santa Ana when this would have hit me, and I would have been dead on the freeway. Um,
Unbelievable.
the way that you combat low blood sugar is by taking sugar. And so, sitting there limp in the dentist's chair, they brought me a Coke, they brought me orange juice, they brought me sandwiches. They wanted to get this in my body to
Right.
reverse all that insulin. And they didn't even want me to go home. They wanted me to check into a hospital. I hung around for about 2 hours until my body functions came back. And what I'd like people to get out of this is that, we believe, at least I believe, and many of us do, that doctors and nurses know what they're doing. This nurse obviously either didn't know what she was doing or misinterpreted the instructions. And I was really lucky not to have died on that day. And
Wow.
I do have to tell you that playing with insulin, um, and what was experienced from that point going forward, you need to be a bit of a chemist, and you need to understand how your body reacts to the insulin. And if you do accidentally overdose, you have to know and be prepared on having something to bring you back. One thing that I learned that works for me, I always have navel oranges in the house. A navel orange will bring me back up 60 to 80 points, and it does it dramatically fast. Now, if you do it in a fast way, your body reacts, my body reacts to
Sure.
flipping the switch back on. And so I have to be in a place where I can sit down and just take it easy, not do anything, go anywhere for 20 minutes, 30 minutes until my body responds. And that doesn't mean that your body is going to respond in the same way,
Right.
but you have to learn all of the things that work for your body.
So
And
typically, I thought with diabetes too, they didn't give you insulin, but they gave you all these other concoctions that are out now, like Trulicity and Prevagen and things like that. And I'm not doubting one over the other, but those we see them all on TV. So, what made them determine right from the beginning that you needed insulin?
well, I think it was the way the doctor was educated, what she thought was correct.
Okay,
And I may have gone to a different doctor who had a different theory. There are uh, pills like metformin and glipizide, and probably a dozen others that are sometimes administered to combat the blood sugar. Um, but you said at the very beginning that Rich and I both have the same diagnosis, diabetes type 2, and our doctors prescribe things differently.
right.
And
Yep,
the way our bodies respond to these things are not the same.
exactly. So,
You
about
know,
how many years have you had diabetes?
Well, it's over 20 years now. And what's really crazy is that they still play with adjusting my meds every few months. And I've been um, facing a losing battle in terms of the numbers. When I tell some people my numbers, they're shocked that I'm even alive. And I'm always shocked when I hear other people with type 2 diabetes who can fairly easy manage their numbers to a low number. A good
Right.
number might be 100. And a lot of people stay in a range between 100 and 130. But I've had numbers as high as 500. I've
Wow.
had daily numbers at the end of the day as high as 300. Um, I've over the 20 years, I only found one doctor who had a diet remedy for me, and I was true to it for 90 days, and my numbers dropped dramatically, but not all the way back to 100. My numbers were still between 150 and 200 on the average. But I was feeling great success compared to some of the other uh, formulas that were
Sure.
used on me. And the reason that I'm not still on that diet, it's like if you were given a diet to eat straw every day, there was no taste to the food that I was eating.
Got it.
Uh, there's, and I was never strong in terms of resisting temptations of what we see on TV or
Right.
what happens when you go to a restaurant when you're on a diet and the other people around you are enjoying their food. I've always, food has always been a temptation to me. and there's basically nothing you can eat. Um, for instance, if I were to eat one nectarine, it shoots my blood sugar up 75 to 100 points. One nectarine.
Wow.
One of the things that I don't do that they all want you to do if you're diabetic is to exercise a lot. And I've never enjoyed exercise. And even knowing that it might improve my health, I guess I'm stubborn and whatever else fits that word. And I still don't do the exercise. But as far as foods, I haven't found anything that I can eat and enjoy and without my sugar going through the roof.
So you monitor yourself numerous times during the day, correct?
I check my blood at least 4 times a day. I take two types of insulin. Before each meal, I'll check my blood sugar number, and then I inject myself according to what that number is, hoping to ward off my sugars going even higher. And it's really hard to know, even if after you're doing it a while, sometimes the same orange gives you a different result
Right.
because different things have happened in your body. You've consumed other things at other points during the day. And so I feel like I'm pretty good at making an educated guess, but I'm always fighting that number. So during the day before each meal, I'm checking my blood and I'm taking Humalog, which is an injectable. And then before bed, I take an injection of Lantus, which basically in the morning, my number's back down to about 110. But I've gone to check my number before bedtime and have it as high as 400, 450. And that's, I'm not telling you this is the way to do it,
Right.
but
Exactly.
I've tried to keep that number down during the day. And sometimes I'm really surprised and I feel like I really did something wrong, right, when my number might be 195 before
Right.
bedtime.
Well, the reason we call this show Avoid the Maze, we know that there's so many different ways of dealing with um, life itself, and diabetes is part of your life and Richard's life. And with Rich and I living together, it becomes part of my life too, because um, when he checks his blood the following morning, um, and his blood levels go up, we automatically start thinking about what he had for dinner the night before. And that can certainly change our plans for the day, uh, and especially dinner time. Um, and I have found with Rich, and I'm going to let him talk in a second, that sometimes um, he just doesn't want to eat. And yet, according to everything that I've read about diabetes, you're supposed to eat small meals regularly to help keep your sugar level um, where it should be. You can go ahead, Rich.
No,
Um,
it hung up.
so, Rich, you were diagnosed about 10 years ago, and
Yeah, about that.
and originally when you got diagnosed, we basically threw everything out of the house uh, that we were told was not good for you. Um, and we did that for maybe a year.
Yeah.
And
Well, we did a couple of things which I've sort of continued to do. We got rid of all the things that everybody said, you can't have candy, you can't have this stuff, and all that. We got rid of all that. So, and then I went on a strict diet of, um, eating relatively good stuff for me,
And not eating late.
and not eating late. So I never eat after 9 now. I just refuse to eat anything after 9. And it's probably as early as 8. I don't eat anything anymore. But um, bottom line is, they put me on a good. They started me out low on metformin, and then they've increased me up to, I think I'm up to 4 pills a day. And I've also, as I have all along, I've also taken vitamins or things that you can find in the nutritional places. Um, and initially, I thought, yeah, this isn't going to work. But I found that most of them do something. I had one that I took initially for almost a year, maybe a year and a half. Had a hard time getting it at a reasonable price, and then I found a place. And when I ended up stopping it, I had a ton of it left, and I ended up throwing it all out. But um, it was a drug that you can find at any, you know, GNC or place like that. And they seem to like the drug, and it does reduce significantly. It probably brought me down, I don't know, 25, 30 points, which for me was good because I had gotten up to a 160 area and was staying up there. So bringing it down another 30 points was good, to me. The problem with that was at the end, um, it was like you take this drug 3 times a day with your meals, and all of a sudden, at some point in the evening, you better find the bathroom.
Mhm.
It would empty you uh, every day. So that I finally gave up on that. And we gave up on a lot of things. And at that same time, my doctor increased the metformin for me. And he, at that point, I believe that's when they first came out with Trulicity.
Right.
And they gave me Trulicity, which is a drug that, um, it takes what it tells your body that you can still make insulin, and it makes your body create insulin naturally. So I don't take insulin at all, but I use the Trulicity to get it in my body. Now, even that we've increased over time, and I now see, just recently, that there are even higher doses of Trulicity that I could take. It's a once a week injection, and I think it works great. And the doctor feels it's doing some good.
And yet, Gary, what happened when you took the Trulicity?
Um, I took it at the beginning of the week, the first injection, and by the third day, I was sick to my stomach, and my body didn't like it at all. But because the Trulicity works for an entire week, I couldn't take it out of my body
Yep.
Right.
except hang on until it was over. And so it didn't work for me. And I really was hoping it would. I was looking for something like that, and it it just didn't work for me. If you listen to the ads for it on TV, there's a whole list of uh, things that can occur to you, and they all say if you've had thyroid cancer. I never had thyroid cancer, but I did have Graves' disease, which is connected to the thyroid.
Right.
And so maybe that's an equivalent that points out that if you've had thyroid problems, you could have trouble. And so never took a second shot of it.
Yeah. Well, that it it works differently in different people. Uh,
Exactly.
and to be real honest, I've had Graves' disease too. So I don't know what the logic is, but so that has worked for me. The problem has been the price, and the price has been, very, very high. And at certain times of the year, I just go to the doctor and I say, I can't take it anymore because I can't get it. And he goes in the other room and and takes a big bag in there and he just stuffs it full of his samples.
But no more since COVID.
And now since COVID, they don't do that. It's just not allowed. Um, well, I don't know that it's not allowed, but they don't get samples like that. So I started asking around, and he said, "Oh yeah, Lilly has a program." Somebody told me Lilly does, and they do have a program, and they'll even supply. And I just looked up while you were talking, the Humalid. Is that what it was called?
Humalog.
Humalog. The Humalog is a Lilly product, and it's on the program, so you can get it for free.
Huh.
So I'll have to get you that form too for that one,
And
because
for those of you listening, typically when you're on Medicare, these programs have not been accessible even if you had a low income, because they look at it as, because you're on Medicare, you're getting a government subsidy, which is really not the truth. So I hope people will understand this. Um, Without insurance, with our insurance, for the first 3 months, his Trulicity runs about $30, $40. Expensive, but not, it's something that we can deal with. But once he hits what is called that donut hole, which anybody on Medicare knows about, but none of us really understand it at all, um, the price of the medication can triple or more. And um, I'm hoping that people will hear this and they will go back to their senators and congressmen and try to get somebody to look at this, because I mean,
this is the
it's
killer.
it's not good. I mean, look what happened to you yesterday, Gary. You went in thinking your medication was going to cost you $30, and now all of a sudden you're in that hole, and they want to charge you 130.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
it may go up again,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
The
that's the bad part of the donut hole. Is the first time that you hit the donut hole, they're reasonable to you. They go, here, we'll give it to you for this, and you think, well, okay, I can afford that, and you come back next month, and it
keeps
blows
going
up.
up.
It just blows right up. I've had one that went from 100 a month in the donut hole to 300 a month in the donut hole,
mm,
and it's just insane.
yeah.
But and Lily has a program, and the other one that you asked about has a program. I'll get you the information on that. And these programs are there for the people that can't physically afford it, but they want to take care of people. They want to look like good people.
And
Plus,
they,
they get to write all this stuff off. So that's
Mm.
how they get their taxes
yeah.
down to zero again.
Well, and it's not that hard to fill out the paperwork. So if
No.
anybody else listening wants some more information, you can reach us at New Cleveland Radio at gmail.com, and
Yeah,
we'll be
it's
more
all
than
out on
glad.
their website. Everybody puts it on their website. It's just that it's so hidden. It's hidden very well. So you'll go one place and it says, no, you don't qualify. We don't have a program. Sorry. And then you go keep clicking on it. Don't believe them. They got a program.
Yeah.
And you click, 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 and then bingo, all of a sudden they got a program out there. And it's like, oh, well, I can apply for this, and if you approve me, what happens? You get it free.
Well, for
Mm.
those of you listening, yesterday I was talking to my brother Gary, and we came to the decision that um, his normal podcast he had been doing with us, just for the spell of it, he may go back doing. But what we want to do is a regular series on diabetes, um, because not everyone is alike. Um, Maybe getting these discussions out there and sharing with each other, you know, different foods that are out there. Um, and, maybe you could only have half um, of a serving, but maybe there's something else that's out there that you could eat. And the same thing with medications. But it's also how it changes your body. And that's some of the things that you're starting to see right now, right, Gary?
Yeah, my body is falling apart. I know it's probably brought on by my actions in terms what I've allowed myself to enjoy in terms of food, but nothing dramatic happened to me during most of these 20 years. It was eating up my insides while I wasn't feeling poorly, but my eyesight has diminished. I have to go in every 6 weeks to get a shot in my eyeball, and my my one of the things that all the doctors always ask me when I would come in, are your ankles swollen? And up until 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, they were never swollen. But now they're swollen, and it feels like I have compression socks on all day long from my toes to my calves. And it doesn't hurt, but it's not normal. And blotches on my arms uh, that look like I'm bleeding under the skin. Uh, just a variety of things. And I know it's all related to diabetes. And am I willing to go back to that total crazy diet that worked? I guess I'm not. Um, I don't especially want to check out of this life, next week, next month. But who knows? I'm probably making that date sooner than later. And um, I go to a nephrologist now who checks my kidneys, and my kidneys are at stage 4. That does not sound good. I don't have any real pain in the kidneys, but he told me to be prepared that if they keep diminishing at this rate, I'll end up on dialysis. And I don't want that to happen to me
Right.
either.
So have they
So,
given you any, did they give you any suggestions how you could possibly slow this down or revert it?
um, not actually. One frustration I've had over the years, so you're diabetic, and I've even gone to a nutritionist that I was sent to by one of the doctors. And they'll start out drawing the food pyramid and telling you the things you should eat, things you shouldn't eat. And I guess they actually have recipes. But what I wanted someone to give me was a recipe book for 7 days with things that I could eat that tasted good.
Yeah.
And I'd eat the same thing 7 days in a row. And then, just repeat that weekly cycle. But
Sure.
they don't do that. And the advice that I've got from the dietitian and others, um, it doesn't seem to work uh, recipe by recipe.
Sure.
So that kind of help, it might be there, but I haven't seen it.
Well, again, if anybody who's listening to this knows of something like that, that would be terrific. I know Rich and I, in the morning when we have our breakfast, there's usually a commercial on for, do you remember the diet program? It's with Marie Osmond. So if anybody
I
has
think it's
seen it,
Nutrisystem.
Nutrisystem, that's it. And they
Mhm.
claim they have a Nutrisystem diet, okay, that you would buy from them, um,
That's for
for
diabetics.
diabetics. But when I went out and looked at it, um, neither one of us likes spicy foods, and almost everything was filled with spices. I mean, to the point that my mouth was burning reading the different foods they had. But it might work for some people. So there may be some other options out there.
Yeah, it would
Um,
work for somebody like Alex.
yeah, our son loves spicy foods, so that probably would work for him.
Yeah.
So you've had these issues come up just recently with your eyesight, with your legs. And I know we're coming out of the pandemic. So for the last year, you basically have stayed inside, you've gone to the grocery store, little things like that. Do you think that there is a form of exercise you could get involved in now that the pandemic is slowing down?
Well, I'm sure there is, and there always has been. It's just a matter of doing it. And this sort of reflects the thought that sometimes we're our worst enemies. And so don't complain about it, Gary. Just do it. And the doing of it, it's all right. I'm a great lover of ketchup. Okay,
Okay.
I'll put it on hamburgers. I'll use it on steak. I've cut that back or almost out because it's sugar.
Right.
I mean, but if you look at so many things, it's like you like a sandwich, the bread is carbs, which is
Right.
sugar.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to sugar. Uh, Eat the sandwich without the bread. Um,
Well, just as a little tip here, if you can find things, which these are impossible to find, but if you can find things that have cane sugar in them,
uh
that in my case, I can handle. It does not affect my blood sugar level at all. It just goes through my body. And blood sugar and cane sugar is actually sweeter than the sugar we have now. So that may be an alternative if you can find it, but you'll never find it in like ketchup made with cane sugar or something like that. That I don't think exists.
I
Well,
hope
even
you're writing all this down
Yeah.
because it would make a real good book at the
yes,
end.
it will. And what we're hoping is those of you who are listening, you will start to participate. Um, email us, let us know what your story is, and we'd love to have you on the podcast with Gary. Um, it's not all doom and gloom, but it's a tough um, time of life when you are dealing with this and you want to go out with other people and you don't want to be the only one sitting at the table drinking water while everybody else is having a good time. Um, so maybe we can all start putting our heads together and come up with some things that will work. Um, I'm going to recommend that nobody take anything that we say as the gospel. Please discuss it with your doctors. Um, and if you don't think you're seeing the right doctor, go find another doctor. And, we all want to stay as healthy as we can. And um, Richard's looking up ketchup for you right now, just so that you know on the other computer, so that if he finds one for you, um, you may have an early birthday present.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it depends if it works for them.
Well, that's what I said. If so, we'll send it on, and um, it might be an early birthday present. But in the meantime, let's continue this dialogue um, in the next week or two, and in the meantime, just take care of yourself out there in Southern California, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Have
Take
have
care.
have a great day.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.